The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order! The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Rockin' Ryan Luis Rodriguez presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Rockin' Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People vs. Josie and the Pussycats, a musical comedy from 2001 about a band of female rockers who get swept up in a scheme to plant subliminal messaging in popular music. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove within a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Dylan Schlender, you're appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may begin your opening statement.
Thank you. Your Honor, members of the jury, if I may begin by saying, more like Josie and the Pussycats, am I right? An easy joke, because if it were not for easy jokes, I would have no jokes at all. But that's what we have here today. A chintzy, not jerkin, little movie that is big on easy jokes, cute girls, catchy songs, and enough early 2000s nostalgia to make some 41 blush. Now, I'm not immune to the pull of nostalgia. As of right now, I'll admit in front of this whole court and before God, I am playing the remastered Tony Hawk games. And my age cohort finds itself in a unique position where we are able to credibly indulge in our nostalgia for the first time. And part of this indulgence is the reinterpretation of cultural relics. You see, Josie and the Pussycats is a product of its time. It's not ahead of its time as the writers would want you to now think. But before I go off on one of my signature tangents, we need to just take a breath and realize that this is a movie that is bad due to deficiencies in writing, acting, respect for the source material, and so much more, all of which will be presented on my next case for the Reels of Justice. Oh, I'm sorry, I read a bit of my promo spot, but you get where I'm going with this.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Mr. Tim Ryder, you are representing the defense. Please present your opening statement.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, observers of the court, allow me to set the scene. America, 2001.
Love it.
Sorry, I should be more specific. America, April 2001. The nation is riding high after a decade of relative peace and prosperity. The angst-filled grunge rock of the 90s have given way to the bright, colorful shininess of the new millennium. Pre-packaged pop stars and boy bands rule the music charts. CDs are bought by the stack at your local Tower Records, and no one has even heard the term reality TV, let alone Real Housewife. It is a blissful moment, rife with potential. Into this moment came a movie. A big screen adaptation of a 40-year-old comic book property written and directed by a relatively unknown duo who cut their teeth on teen comedies and skewed looks at beloved properties. They took this stale, forgotten property whose only other adaptation was a one-season animated series on CBS in the 70s, 2 seasons if you count the one where they went to outer space, and put a fresh, charming spin on it. And that spin was completely rejected. Critics didn't get it. Roger Ebert gave it a 0.5 star out of 4 and said it was as dumb as the Spice Girls. And audiences didn't love it either. On a $39 million budget, the movie grossed less than $15 million domestic. A bona fide box office bomb. Which, to be fair, is a shame, but doesn't take away from a very important fact. Quoting a great video essay from the comic John Field, whose well-thought-out arguments I will try not to rip off in totality, the fact is this. Josie and the Pussycats is the greatest movie of all time. Stay with me. It's warm, charming, and an incredible amount of fun. The cast is stellar from top to bottom, and whether they're the lead or they only appear in the first scene of the movie, they're giving it their all. They know exactly what movie they're in, and they're having a blast. The writing is sharp and funny and has a satirical point of view far sharper and incisive than a teen comedy has any right to possess. And the soundtrack contains some of the best original songs written for a movie in cinematic history. This movie is a beautiful time capsule of a specific moment in America with themes and messages that remain relevant to this day. It is better than good. It's incredible. And that is what I'm prepared to defend today. And I will defend it to the death.
Is this courtroom to the death?
Are we still doing trial by combat? I do have this spear.
I didn't know the rules exactly, but that is what I'm prepared for.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Prosecution, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, and welcome to the court, opposing counsel. I'm happy to hear that you're willing to die because you are going to get toasted. What we have in Josie and the Pussycats is a hairball of a script that only a hack could hack up. You see,
objection. Those are terrible. Is that a worthwhile objection?
Stipulated. I said I only have easy jokes.
That is sustained.
That's fair. He delivered on his promise.
All right, you may continue, prosecution.
Strap in. Death by 1,000 easy jokes. Now, where was I? We are treated. Just right out the beginning here, I think it's very important before we start getting into all this, how great America is pre-9/11, cashing in on the peace dividend talk, which I actually really am a big fan of doing, and I do look forward to getting into. We need to look at the movie itself in a vacuum for a moment. And what that gives us are 3 one-dimensional characters that are not interesting at all, except to the extent that they can be ogled. Then we are treated to a banal love story of a good-looking girl, played by Rachel Lee Cook, who plays the main character, Josie, pining for an average guy who looks like some weird mix between Tony Hawk and Steve Buscemi, who is completely oblivious, naturally, because that's just what you do in these movies, you see. Like, she could probably have any guy she wanted, but needs the guy with the heart of a poet, the soul of an artist and the doofy haircut, She's not going for Mr. Muscle Beach. Why bother? We have Rosario Dawson bringing nothing to the table. Her whole character arc is to give Josie a sidewards look saying, "You've changed because you've been brainwashed." We can go into that a little later. And then, of course, we have Tara Reid, who, by all accounts, didn't even know they were making a movie. I mean, we're talking for real here. The dumb blonde that's what she is. She's playing the dumb blonde. And if you're going to go that simple and that shallow, you need to have more than what this movie provided for her. But no, you get the easy jokes. You get she's stupid. You get she's cute, and we get to watch her bang on her drums all day. So,
objection.
All right, I'd like to. Okay, go ahead.
It's a well-worn stipulation of comedy writing and comedy acting that one must be actually quite smart in order to play dumb. And I believe that although Tara Reid has given us no evidence in recent days that she is possessing of that intelligence, in this movie, I believe she is doing a lot with what could be a very limited role. She is playing the dumb blonde to the hilt, but also imbuing it with the very positivity and sunniness that underlies the themes of the movie. And that's at least 2 dimensions.
2 dimensions, not bad.
So dumb and happy and sunny. But what we have, if you want us to believe that this is a brilliant movie, the best movie ever made, to not be able to transcend such a simple trope, just to wallow in it because there were 3 Pussycats in the comics, so you need 3 on the screen. So why not have Tara Reid of American Pie fame, just go up there and make very simple jokes about her looks. At the beginning, we have her holding that sign, honk if you love pussy, and then pulls it out as cats, and it's like, okay, yeah, very, very clever. I mean the absolute genius of these screenwriters is staggering. I'm being sarcastic, members of the jury. So when you're reading reading that back, I realize that might hurt my case.
Several cars lost their lives for that visual gag. I will have you know.
And we salute them for their service. This was before 9/11, so we might have said they were heroes, but not today. So if I could continue, having pretty much just proven the solid case for the one-dimensionally the characters.
1 second.
Yes,
I would like to hear the defense actually respond to the other characters supposedly being one-dimensional.
I disagree. I think these characters are warm, and they are charming, and they are fun, and they have goals. I think the romantic subplot could be referred to as a subplot because of how little importance it gains to the movie. The movie ends not with Josie getting the guy, but with Josie realizing her dreams, and the guy is a little bit of icing on the cake, thereby subverting the main trope of a teen comedy. I think these girls can be defined by their relationship to each other, by their goals of sisterhood and friendship, and they are interesting, and they are fun, and they are different from the types of characters that you would normally see in a standard teen comedy.
Without referencing the fact that they're in a band together or their love of music, what do these girls have that make them friends, or this sisterhood that you're talking about?
Very cool hair.
Yes, how appropriately shallow for the time. I honor if you're satisfied.
I'm satisfied. You may continue.
All right. Then the movie takes off with these cardboard cutouts that play instruments.
Come on.
The cardboard cutouts don't come until later in the movie.
The point is they get thrust into the spotlight right away, right? And it leaves us scratching our heads because we're moving as fast as they are. We can only watch the movie as it's coming, and we get to react to things that exactly the same way you do. And we're scratching our heads and we're saying, what are we supposed to make of this? For you see, when we're first introduced to Josie and the Pussycats, we get a very stereotypical opening. The credits are a very stereotypical kind of music video of that pop punk genre. At the time, it would fit for the aforementioned band Sum 41, Blink-182, any one of these pop punk bands that promulgated the airwaves at the time. And then we find out that they're performing in a bowling alley. And it's like, oh, well, hey, they're about the music. They're going to perform where they can, right? But no. For you see, when Alan Cummings comes along playing an evil British guy, which, I mean, that's just probably redundant at this point. He's got a British accent. He's evil. Again, savagely clever. Hats off to the screenwriter-director combo here. They're blowing my mind. He gives them a contract. He says, okay, sign the contract. And they're like, but you haven't heard any of our stuff or anything like that. Where's the integrity for these 3 women? It's not there. Where is the respect for the craft, for the love of music? It is not there. So we're already knocking down maybe the one thing that they have going for them, which is the fact that they're a band that loves music and that they're creative and that they're friends. And that all gets thrown away. Just what? So the movie can happen, I suppose. It's not to make a biting commentary. It's because
Objection.
they cram in more jokes.
I want to hear this.
Yes, they are shown no integrity. Yes, they are shown no respect because they're being sucked into a system that does not value integrity, respect, or craftsmanship.
I was saying not what was being exhibited towards them, but the Pussycats themselves had no integrity and no respect for the craft.
They have internal integrity and respect for the craft because they care more about the music than any of these cool new things that they are being given. This speaks to the underlying satirical point of the movie, which I will speak more in my defense.
Well, I don't think it does because we literally see them do the things I just described where they do sign the contract and they do start living this big life, and Rosario Dawson, and one of the few things she says in this movie, because Again, she's just here to be looked at and point out that Josie got brainwashed. It talks about how we're still poor. They're looking forward to that do-re-mi, that moolah, that sweet, sweet green. But that's okay. So they jettison any respect that they might have had for their art. That's fine. We clearly all agree on that. But let's actually look a bit.
We do not, but continue.
Well, if we agreed, there'd be no court case, you see.
Indeed.
Let's talk for a moment. We're going to pull back from the picture and these very bland, one-dimensional, and frankly, incredibly uninteresting characters. And let's look at the soundtrack of the motion picture. This is a place in our cultural moment, circa 2020, I believe it was 2017, where the vinyl of the soundtrack was being released, because you see us pretentious millennial types, we love getting the vinyl because it sounds fuller. But hanging the hat on the soundtrack, which was put together by recording artist Babyface, we have a movie called Josie and the Pussycats. It's all about a band, so the music's going to be important. None of the actresses sing any of the main songs. They provide cursory backup lyrics on some of the songs. The actual singing is done by the real talent, Kay Hanley, of the band Letters to Cleo. So we have to wonder if we are going to believe that this movie is a satire, if it is a commentary. Why not have actual singers or musicians? Keeping in mind, Beyonce was considered for the role that was given to Rosario Dawson. She dodged a bullet. But all I'm saying is, giving the stilted and wooden performances from the Pussycats, I am not entirely convinced it would have been harder to teach a singer to act. So why not add that level of authenticity that you claim to be craving? And now here's the twist. It wouldn't be a Dylan episode without a twist. I don't think the director and writing team, that would be Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, I don't think they were trying to make this a commentary. I don't think they were trying to make this a satire. I think they thought at the time they were making a silly movie based on a pretty well-loved property that was going to do all right. It was going to do good business. It's a job.
Objection. This is pure conjecture from the part of the prosecution.
Well, that is sustained.
The reason, conjecture is a kind of evidence, you see, because I'm supporting what I'm saying with facts that exist in the movie and in the record. So in the movie, we know that these are not musicians and it's just bad acting. We now have the duo, Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, after the fact, after this movie has been completely maligned, after they found out, wait a minute, we've got a cult following now. Oh, ho, ho, look at this. We can release the vinyl soundtrack. We can go around and do live shows about people watching this. They've turned it into a whole cottage industry. I mean, Deborah Kaplan gives speeches at colleges about this movie. She gets paid for her time. And God bless them, like all that. If they were making a commentary against all that stuff, I mean, they've bought into it now, like they've sold out for the purposes of this movie. And maybe that's part of the point.
Objection.
I don't know. What do you object?
Please.
Your conjecture that this post reception reconfiguration of the intent of the movie is completely inaccurate. In fact, there were interviews at the time that Harry Elfont during the movie was watching dailies and commented, "Oh no, I think we're making a cult movie." They knew what they were making at the moment, and even though it might not have worked out for them in box office success, they continued on with that movie. I think they made exactly the movie that they wanted to make. Whether or not it was received in that sense is on the fact of the audience.
I read that interview, and the way he said, "Oh no, we're making a cult movie," was in fear of its lack of commercial success. He goes on in that interview to talk about how they wanted to make a successful commercial movie. Does he not?
He does.
Aha! So there you have it.
But
I
trying
might
to
rest my case there, but I have so much more to say.
trying to make his one mistake, their mistake probably, was overestimating the intelligence of the American audience. A fact that is a constant pitfall.
Now that is conjecture. So your theory is that they were too smart and we were all dumb. My theory is that they just failed at making a movie. I think my theory is correct, and I think the jury's going to agree with me. I don't think these people are particularly smart. I've read the interviews. You can see the other movies they've done. I mean, like, they had one burst of genius, and they decided to use that genius to make Josie and the Pussycats with dumb blonde jokes, with actresses who can't sing. That's what they did. And then not to mention the end of the movie, because we cannot ignore the end of the movie with the bizarre conspiracy theory of how pop music is used to brainwash teenagers into buying orange clothes and Puma sneakers. We see the two principal antagonists, Parker Posey and Alan Cumming, and in gross detail, we learn the gross details of their past. Parker Posey reveals that she has a speech impediment, bad teeth, she was made fun of in high school. Alan Cummings reveals that he wasn't even British, and he's an albino for some reason. So these geniuses who made a movie that was too smart for pre-9/11 America, this disgusting reveal that makes no sense and grinds the pacing of the movie to an absolute halt. It is stupid. It is gross. It is not funny. And it is certainly not genius.
Objection.
This is a throwaway gag that makes me want to vomit.
Please go ahead, defense.
Opposing counsel is being a big wiener.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Definitely sustained. Prosecution.
Yes,
in
Your
any
Honor.
case, do you happen to own a record player?
Indeed, I do, Your Honor.
That's I'm gonna leave that one
So
there.
one-
And I own one because I am too smart for the American audience.
Right.
Probably too smart for our audience. That's right. Bring it on.
Canceled.
I'm gonna hand it off to the defense in 1 second, but I do want to just press on one issue that the prosecution brought up. So you're maintaining that, just so I can get this clear, that they didn't have satirical intent, Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfont?
This is a good question, Your Honor. I do not think they had the level of satirical intent they want to say they had now. I am of the theory, based on the evidence available to the court today, that in this movie they thought that they were maybe being a little clever with the product placement. They thought they might be making some kind of mild commentary on consumerism, but they were just kind of sneering at. They weren't critiquing it. You know, it's like, oh, hey, look at this, ads everywhere. And then we say, but what does that mean? The movie actually doesn't tell you what that means. They just do it as part of a goofy joke. And after that didn't work, and people thought, and I will say this in their mild defense, you know, they didn't take money from a lot of these people. They did mention that they had to, here's the thing. It's not that they didn't take money, though, mind you, but they did still have to get permission because the Gap did not let them use their branding, you know. So this was all done with a wink and a nod. So McDonald's was like, go ahead, you know, and Coke. And
there's a difference between money and consent.
Well, yeah, I should hope so. That's a different case, though, down the hall. But when we say satire, when we talk about critique, when we talk about criticism, you know, looking, especially if you want to look at something as big and complicated as consumerist culture in pre-9/11, post-Cold War America, and there is big fertile ground to cover. No, it's a long time. It is. And this idea that it's somehow distilled and commented on in any meaningful way in Josie and the Pussycats is completely farcical and is the invention of two screenwriters who are just trying to, ironically, milk as much money out of their fans as they can. that's the cruelest thing about this movie at the end of the day, that if they were sincere, they've become what they hated. I just like to think they were trying to make a fun little movie, and it didn't work out, but now they saw an opportunity where they can make some scratch off it in a cottage industry, going around talking about how ahead of the times they were, when there's no evidence in the movie for it. And now that we live in those times that they were supposedly looking into, we can demonstrably see it's not true. So to answer your question, Judge, and you shouldn't have asked me a question because I can go on forever.
Yeah, that's
For
true.
sure.
Is it
For
satire?
sure.
Is it satire? No. Are they pointing out things? Yes. Are they making substantive critique, substantive criticism? Are they giving you something to chew on, or does it just slip off the brain? Well, Your Honor, it slips right off the brain.
Well, I do want to hear the defense on this, because
Is he
the
done?
intent
Is he rest?
is certainly a big part of the context of this film.
I'm so sorry, Your Honor, I fell asleep.
I move for a summary judgment in my favor. But I always do that, to be fair.
Bailiff, get some smelling salts?
Coming right up.
Oh, okay. Yes. What are we talking about? Satirical intent?
Yes.
Let's look at this movie in relation to others in its genre, just off of other movies that its lead actors had been in. Rachel Lee Cook is coming off hot off She's All That, a movie which main themes include things like this secretly hot girl with a little confidence can be obviously hot, and also be true to yourself, and maybe dudes shouldn't be such jerks. Tara Reid is coming off American Pie with themes such as growing up is awkward, but you can get through it together with your friends, and sometimes you stick a wiener in a pie. There are similar.
Only sometimes, guys.
Only sometimes. Definitely when you know your parents aren't coming home. There are similar themes in this movie. Friendship comes first. Be true to who you are. Go for your dreams. Oh, but also, popular culture is a tool used to manipulate you into participating in consumer-based capitalism. This satirical point, which I argue the movie makes very completely and very truly, is much more sophisticated and sharp than any teen comedy has a right to be included. I think they were very pure in their intent in, yes, not accepting money for all of these product placements. They were not product placements. They were set dressing. They were voluntarily included by the filmmakers to underscore their satirical point of view. This movie is a dystopia. Not a dystopia in tone. It's very warm and bright and sunshiny, but it's a dystopia in premise. This society that Josie and the Pussycats operate in, the people in the society are inundated with capitalist iconography. Brands are assaulting them literally in almost every frame of the movie, like they're in some Stalinist cult of personality. And their only role in this society is to consume, and their only freedom of choice is whether they choose orange shoes or the cool new blue ones. And Josie and the Pussycats are operating within that society, but also trying to subvert it and rise above it. And in doing so, I think are showing a satirical intent and also a very subtle format playing with the genre.
Do they rise above it, though, or do they succumb to it? Because at the end of the movie, what do we have? We have them having a humongous concert in front of all their fans, and she has this perfunctory line of, just decide for yourself, okay? Now, if we wanted some interesting commentary and some interesting comedy, everyone would have booed them and they would have left. Then, boom, message delivered. But that's not what happened, because the director and writer team is not as smart as people want to think they are.
No, because we finally go back to your point of their integrity of craft. They are able to rise above it. They play the song without any subliminal messages. And guess what? It fucking rules, because they are great musicians and the audience loves it. They reveal their intent, they reveal their mastery and their integrity, and in doing so, subvert the society that they're in.
I don't think it reveals their integrity, because they still have the captive audience, though. If everyone just suddenly realized, oh man, what are we doing here? If the brainwashing really wore off. And also, this is a plot hole about how the various degrees of how effective this brainwashing is in this movie. I mean, we have it to the point where it's brainwashing Josie to the point where she's rejecting the other two girls, but they can't brainwash the other two girls into just, being rejected. We have the Hot Topic chick at the beginning of the movie in the mall saying, like, I listen to this music, I want to puke. But then later we see that she actually can be brainwashed as well. So there has to be some kind of subjective quality to the music that's playing. And I just don't think we see that at the end. Of course, it's going to end with everyone loving them. That's not particularly interesting or profound, and I fail to see how it demonstrates their integrity. The integrity would have been to say, I didn't get here legitimately. I do not belong here. I should resign and let the Vice Pussycat take over. But that's
The Vice Pussycat.
That is not an elected position. We don't recognize the Vice Pussycat's authority.
Not my Vice Pussycat.
Well, it's better than that Pussycat coup that we survived all those years ago. But best not to talk about it. But that's my point, is I appreciate how people can look back on this movie and see a simpler time, a fun time. We had the peace dividend. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. Everything was absolutely jerking. But this movie is not the appropriate time capsule for it. It was not at the time, is why it was ill-received. And now people trying to elevate it after the fact, aided and abetted by Elfont. That is an affront. Kaplan, her skills are capped. I just don't see it. The people don't see it.
Okay.
We were kind of all over the point. I didn't know if I was actually making a point or responding.
I don't think you were. Defense, do you want to respond to any part of that weird rambling argument, or would you like to go into your main arguments?
Objection. That was very articulate and to the point. There's no integrity from the Pussycats, is my point.
Objection. Not even you knew what point you were trying to make there.
True.
Sustained. Please go ahead, Defense.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the personnel of this movie, the people portraying these, as you call them, one-dimensional characters. This cast is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. And no, that is not a lascivious pun.
Oh.
This
Objection, it's clearly a lascivious pun.
Overruled.
I didn't know what I was saying, but I walked into it, and I don't regret it. This cast is incredible. You have Rachel Lee Cook, hot off She's All That at her wide-eyed, awkward best. Rosario Dawson, the strong-willed, wise member. Yes, she beat out Beyonce, Aaliyah, and Lisa Left Eye Lopez for the role. Tara Reid didn't even have to audition because she was so good in American Pie. You have to be smart to play dumb. As I said, this is such a lovely reminder of how cute she once was. Also, Tara Reid learned to play the drums for this movie. I shouldn't have to make any further argument. That should be my counter to any argument that the prosecution has. Tara Reid learned to play the drums for this movie. End of story. You have Alan Cumming and Parker Posey, indie queen at the time, but doing their campy best, having a blast as this villainous duo. Parker Posey makes the strangest choices in her vocal delivery and body performance. There's some bit at the party where she crosses her arms in front of herself and frames her face with her hands. That's the weirdest, most balletic choice. It's bewildering and also entrancing at the same time, and I love it. Missy Pyle does more with her dozen lines in this movie than most actors do with an entire leading role. And we haven't even talked about Du Jour, the boy band that starts the film with their pretty cheeky hit Backdoor Lover.
Cheeky!
Objection! Lascivious comments!
Sustained. But I'll allow it.
Again, I did not realize what I was saying, but I do enjoy it. You have Alexander Martin as Les and an uncredited Seth Green, Breckin Meyer, and Donald Faison giving it their all in 2 scenes, having a blast. And then Eugene Levy, an uncredited cameo, because who better in American cinema to explain the shady government plot of subliminal messaging? This cast is incredible. Everyone is warm and charming and clearly having fun. I don't think they could have done a better job of casting this movie, and they carry their roles with aplomb.
Objection. I think you clearly could do a better job of casting this movie. Let's just dive back into the Pussycats for a moment. You said Rosario Dawson is the strong-willed character. What does she do that's particularly strong-willed? When we watch her in this movie, she is maybe a little skeptical, but still going along for the ride. And she serves as this very weak, tepid foil for when Josie turns heel. That's it. She's there to remind the audience that Josie is in fact brainwashed now, in case you fell asleep during the movie.
She is 1/3 of the heart of this movie. Her skeptical, wise beyond her years attitude is key to furthering the plot. And also, she plays the bass.
But she doesn't actually play the bass.
Yes, she did. Rosario Dawson learned how to play the bass for this movie.
Are they playing it on the soundtrack?
Rachel Lee Cook learned how to play guitar for this movie. They all went to a band camp for a month before they started filming. Are they on the soundtrack? No, they got freaking Matthew Sweet to play on the soundtrack because they're smart, but they look good doing it. So many girls picked up a guitar and wanted to be rock stars because of this movie. That alone should serve as inspiration as to the jury's judgment.
So you're saying that young girls across America in this movie that no one saw because it didn't make any money went up and picked up guitars.
It's called cable TV, my friend. It's called reruns on cable. It's called DVDs. This movie is a cult classic for a reason.
As hostile. The reason is because of the mythology that's been built around it. This is all mythologizing. We have to accept the fact that it's not a good movie, that they made the bizarre decision not to use actual musicians. If we are to believe that this was a commentary on the music industry. And like I said, Elvis could act. I mean, we have this history that we can look at already. So I'm just not buying it that you can say these things like she learned to play the bass, she's heart and soul, but it doesn't actually mean anything in the movie because the movie is what we got. That's what we're watching, and we see Rosario Dawson basically just break up the band with Josie. That's like the big plot point they have, and then they all get together at the end and say, "Oh no, we all do love each other." But hey, tell you what, even though we didn't make it here legitimately, and even though we're supposed to love the music, we're gonna play for this captive audience here anyway. And guess what? They love us.
It's a simple message. I will grant you that, but it is a message that is true. These are good people, and they're good people because they're happy being friends. And when they're not friends, they're sad. And when they're friends again, they're happy. The bad people don't have any friends, and so they're sad, and they do weird things to try to make friends. But then at the end, they finally get to be friends, but they're thrown in jail because they're bad. It's simple. That doesn't make it untrue.
Yeah, but it does make it a bad movie, and it does make it profoundly uninteresting if you want us to go along with this. I'm just going to call it conspiracy theory at this point. Conspiracy theory that this movie was actually about some broader commentary.
Objection. That's your.
That is sustained. Let him finish. Come on.
Are you saying that good movies can't be simple? Good movies can't contain simple truths?
I am not saying that. I am saying that this movie, by going in that direction, if we're to believe the other points that you have brought up, they don't reconcile with each other. And that's what makes this movie bad. With that ending, with Alan Cumming and Parker Posey revealing their true selves, was absolutely bizarre. Maybe there was supposed to be some kind of kernel of wisdom in there. Again, I doubt it, because to their credit, I would think they were just trying to make a silly movie, not a particularly deep or profound movie. And that's why you have the other crass woman there, her name escapes me, say like, oh, is the lesson here that freaks should be with freaks or something? It's just a throwaway joke. They're not actually saying freaks should just be with freaks, because I don't think anyone actually believes that. Or
they're saying that people should be true to who they are, and that if you find other people who are true to who they are, then you can be friends and you can be happy together, instead of forcing an entire world to accept a false version of yourself.
And do you have any further arguments, defense?
I do. I would like to talk about the soundtrack. Because as a musical comedy, the music is very important to this. Think about the people that they got to do this. Yes, produced by Babyface, and also Adam Schlesinger.
All right.
R.I.P. The frontman of Fountains of Wayne, he wrote That Thing You Do and wrote many of the songs on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And yes, we sadly lost him to COVID-19 earlier this year. R.I.P.
Oh, that's sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Indeed. Many of the songs were written by such pop music idols as Adam Duritz of Counting Crows, Jane Weedland of the Go-Go's, among many others. The guitars and bass, as I mentioned, were Matthew Sweet, and the incredible vocals were from Kay Hanley of Ben Wyatt's favorite band, Letters to Cleo. Think about the songwriting challenge of this movie. It's like asking a songwriter to write a fake pop rock song that could conceivably be a number one hit, and then do that half a dozen more times. And I believe that they truly did. This soundtrack, yes, has a very 2000s pop punk feel, but it slaps. It is so good. It is very of the time. It propels the movie forward with this visceral, pounding, upbeat energy. And I watched this movie again yesterday. The songs have been stuck in my head all day. It's so good. It's way better than any soundtrack for this kind of movie has a right to be. And that's why one of the reasons why this movie pervades to this day. And yes, when the vinyl was re-released in 2017, a lot of people bought it because the music is very good. Not for some aspirational hipster goal, but because the music is good and they wanted to listen to it on a good stereo. And I checked today and I can't find any for sale, and I am very upset.
Do you have a record player, for the record?
For the record, I do have a record player. Most of the albums,
us millennials, we're too hip. We want to be on the outside looking in. That's what I'm saying.
most of the albums do belong to my wife, but I have a few of my own. It's important. I gave it to her. You know what? I gave that record player to her as a Christmas present. So put that in your argument and stuff it, prosecution.
I would like to begin the following argumentation against my opponent's wife. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that.
Starland Vocal Band. They suck.
Prosecution, you have spoken to the relative lack of musical talent of the actresses, but you've been fairly quiet on the actual musical content. Can you briefly speak to that?
I cannot briefly speak to it, so I might not speak to it at all. But suffice it to say very quickly, Judge, that it is very indicative of the times. This was not pushing the envelope. This sounds like anything that could have been cranked out by a band like Blink-182, which at that point was already huge back from 1999. They went for more of the pop punk sound instead of the Backstreet Boys boy band kind of sound that we had from Du Jour. So in so much as the soundtrack moves plot, it's just because they needed songs for the transitions. I don't think it adds anything of substance to the movie, despite its overall catchiness, which I did stipulate in my opening argument. And with that, I will rest.
Okay. Any further arguments, defense?
No further arguments. The defense rests.
All right. Both the prosecution and defense have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Prosecution, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Tim, for your time as well. You were indeed a very worthy opponent, and if this was a fight to the death while I would be coming out victorious, I might be missing an arm. So, jury, when you deliberate in that sacred chamber, you don't have to pretend to be nice. You can utter these 3 small words. Movie is guilty. But I implore you, utter more words so it sounds a little better when you're reading it back to the judge. And I told you I was going for the easy jokes. That's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Loved it.
And defense, you may present your closing argument.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, observers of the court, du jour means friendship. Du jour means crash positions. Du jour means closing statements. Josie and the Pussycats is a good movie. It's fun, it's funny, and it makes you feel good when you watch it. This movie devotes an extended period of time to one character saying something under their breath and the other character overhearing it. It's a bit that goes on so long that it stops being funny and then becomes funny again. And that is how devoted this movie is. It's a story of sisterhood and friendship, aspiration and dreams, but with true wit and satirical bite, not to mention a grim vision of a capitalist future that has largely come to pass. And on top of all that, it possesses a soundtrack that, to this day, slaps, and slaps hard. So, members of the jury, not to parrot the prosecution, but to, as I believe I have, top him, I ask you, can't you just pretend to be nice? If you don't side with me, I wish you well, but if you don't see this movie the way I do, you don't see me. Come on, be a shapeshifter and shift your mind. Take all that we've discussed today and spin around. Recognize that this movie tells us all, hey, you're a star. So take your time, deliberate, but then let me hear those 3 small words, and don't make them way too late. This movie rules. Thank you.
That was quite lyrical. Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Haslar, Mr. Maynard, Mr. Razor Rodriguez, you have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Follow me. It's on the way to the little bailiff's room.
All right. So, interesting case. What were your thoughts on it? Ryan, what did you think?
Well, I mean, going into this is not a bad movie. This is, I don't know if it's a great movie, but it's a very good movie.
So mine's made up.
Well, I mean, I was willing to listen to the prosecution, but the prosecution kept leaning on this this argument that what the intention was not either successful or that it wasn't truly satirical. And I don't think that the evidence is there. I think that I don't see how you could really come to any other conclusion, which is strange considering the critical reception that it originally had.
Ben, your thoughts?
Damn, did that defense make me yearn for a day when I did not know about Kim Kardashian. Oh. I don't know, like, for what it is selling to me, like, this isn't a point that they brought up, but what it felt like to me is it felt like a kid's movie. Like, if I were going to tell you about a plot where, like, you know, people are brainwashing people with little robotic kitten ears, and like the villains had like a speech impediment or were albinos and stuff, like, doesn't that sound like some sort of family movie to you?
I agree. Absolutely. That does sound like a kid's movie.
Except it's like
brought that up.
We got girls like, you know, we got Honk If You Love Pussy like thrown into it, and we got
that's true. That's the one joke that throws your theory off. That
well,
joke
just the way the girls are dressed. I mean, it's not really something you show to your kids. I don't think it feels more like a teen movie at that point.
I don't know. I mean, there's some tummies out, but there's not like, I don't remember any really short shorts or anything.
No, it's not that like leering.
Yeah, it's not super revealing. It's a little Tara Reid tummy. I think my kids should see that.
Well, I guess the point is that it didn't feel like a satirical teen movie to me, like with the kid plot line, with the brainwashing and the kitten.
I agree with that. Like, I think
not satirical.
Well, it wasn't satirical in any way. It felt to me because, like, from the very get-go, we have like, oh, they're flying in a plane. And there's like target everywhere.
Right. To me,
it just didn't hit any point home, you know, at the end at all about brainwashing. To me,
it missed its target. If you will.
We do it in the jury room too.
Boo!
No booing. To me, it was heavily leaned on that this movie was a satire that missed its mark, but I agree more with Ben. There's maybe observation about consumerism. Consumerism is a theme in this, but I don't think the movie has anything to say about it. But I don't think that necessarily has to make it bad, because I do think it is more of just an innocent comedy. Like, it kind of reminds me of Superstar, the SNL character. Was it Molly Shannon?
Yeah.
It's just funny. I don't know if it says anything about Catholicism, but it has Catholicism in it. But I don't think it says anything about it. It's just funny. And this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think the Captain and Tennille and Chief stuff was hilarious. And I know that not a lot of people feel that way, but how would he know he's a captain if he doesn't have a hat?
It's kind of a Family Guy sketch, but it is funny.
But it is funny. And also, as the defense brought up, the muttering under the breath and hearing it.
That's the funniest
was
part of the entire film.
really funny. I do have a question. Ben, Ryan, do you own record players?
No.
I do not.
Oh,
No.
okay. So it was just the two of them that own record players. It's funny that
We're keeping it real here.
that all millennials own record players, and yet he's like one of the only millennials I know that owns a record player. To speak to the catchiness, I know that those songs have been sung throughout the house all day and all last night, and they weren't all by me. So I can definitely speak to it being an incredibly catchy soundtrack. And I was initially disappointed that the girls weren't the ones singing. That was a big hit against me. But then finding out from the defense that they actually did go to play the drums to at least mime it enough to movie, that was pretty good. You know, Tara Reid learned
from American
That's
Pie
a
with the
strange
band
thing
camp,
to get
though.
hung up on.
to me, there are enough talented musicians who can also act that you could have found someone. You could have found real musicians.
Marketable?
Yes, you think what that are as cute as Rachel Lee Cook?
Like
Yes,
Britney Spears or something like that. She's been in
There are
movies.
musicians who can act who just had a hit movie. Just
I
like
don't
two of
know
these
that they have
actresses.
big names, but isn't Josie and the Pussycats the recognizable?
Well, it costs
Uh,
$39
marketable.
million. You got to get as much marketability in there as you possibly can. You can't
Yes,
take
it
a
sounds
risk.
like you're defending consumerism here, Ryan. But
No, I'm
but
just rebutting your
to me,
argument.
to me, it's a small stumble. You could have actually built a band that was so great that they could have actually sold actual albums, actually had a tour, actually done music videos, and actually done live concerts. You could have actually kicked off Josie and the Pussycats, kind of like how Metalocalypse did with Death Clock. You know, they were, that show was so popular, they actually did Death Clock concerts, and they're cartoon characters. People just went to go watch them on a screen, but the band was popular enough that it actually worked. You could have done that, and that would have been very revolutionary in 2001. So it's something that could have happened. However, again, I am pleased that they at least went to learn enough about the instruments to mime successfully, so that does pick it up a little bit. So for me, although I am a bigger fan of Jem and the Holograms, I am going to vote not guilty.
Ben?
I think I'm gonna go guilty just to make it interesting. I mean, one of the arguments was like the cast is great, but so did Jonah Hex had a great cast. It had Josh Brolin and Will Arnett in it. I don't feel like it hit its mark as far as what it was aiming for. I do feel like retroactively they tried to make it fit something, and maybe they did. It feels like a kids movie to me.
Tom and Jerry would disagree with you on that.
What's wrong with the kids movie, though? I'm saying, what's wrong with the kids movie?
Well, that's not the argument that they were saying made it good, that it's like some sort of brilliant satire. A kids movie is not a brilliant satire.
I do think you're right
I don't think
about
they
that.
said they were making a kids movie.
I think that is what
that's what it
the
felt
writers
like.
are doing. The writers are trying to retroactively make it something that it isn't. I don't think it's a satire. I do think it's a fun musical comedy.
By retroactive, what date would you give for that?
Whenever they started touring campuses and
Yeah, that was
begging
news to me.
people
I
to
didn't know that was a
The audio
thing.
commentary was recorded before the film was released, and they were talking about it in satirical terms on that commentary. They were talking
But
about...
was the film done editing? I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
You're making me want to change my vote then, because if they were aiming to make a satire, they failed, Ryan. If they were aiming to make a cute, funny musical, they succeeded. So what's the intent? Because they say nothing.
Clear.
I mean, they say nothing about consumerism. They just notice it. They say nothing.
Yeah.
It's an indictment. It doesn't have to give an alternative. It just has
I
to
don't
tell
know if
you
it is
that
an
this is
indictment.
terrible.
I'm not sure it is an indictment, because I don't want to change my vote, but even as the prosecution said earlier, like, the girls really do just lose their integrity almost instantly. I mean, they instantly sign without ever being heard. They're happy with being on a billboard without ever being heard. They're happy to have their music filtered into a machine and have who know what added. They don't mind.
You're a
Smile
creative
and go
person.
along with their fame. Say again?
You're a creative person. I'm sure you've had to work hard to get yourself seen, and I'm sure that you've had times of desperation. And if you're putting out good work and no one will listen to you, and then all of a sudden somebody says, here's some money, yeah, you might have to sacrifice a few principles, you wouldn't do that? I mean, I know we're all idealists deep down, but you wouldn't actually do that?
You just have to cut Ben from the podcast. Out he goes.
Oh,
wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I love Ben too much. If they want me to cut Dylan, then I'll do it.
I take that hit.
Anyway, my vote is still not guilty, but based on it being a cute, rompy, catchy musical, I don't think it's especially brilliant or deep on satire. I don't think it's a great movie. I just don't think it's bad because it's cute and funny.
And I'm guilty with the caveat that Tara Reid was actually pretty good in this movie. She was sunny and delightful and pretty much what you'd expect from the cartoon.
Anything with Parker Posey has value. And I love a teen-oriented musical that was shot by the cinematographer of Requiem for a Dream. So it is a not guilty from me.
There you have it.
All right. Two not guilties and a guilty, so let's get out there and deliver the verdict.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Josie and the Pussycats, we find the accused guilty of being a bad movie. Woo! Because guilty is the new innocent, in which we mean the movie is not guilty.
Oh, jerkin!
It's a jerkin movie.
Okay. The verdict is so rendered. I sentence us all to 60 hours of mandatory subliminal corporate brainwashing. Hopefully afterwards we'll be able to write a song as catchy as Pretend to Be Nice. Court is adjourned.
This is Ben Blitzer on the steps of the Reels of Justice courthouse. We have just heard the stunning revelation that Josie and the Pussycat is not a bad movie. Mr. Tim Ryder, you defended this film. Could we get your thoughts on this verdict, please?
Thank you. It was my honor to defend this film today. I'm very happy with the jury's verdict. I only hope to continue spreading the good word of this movie in hopes that it will one day attain its place at the rightful top of the mountaintop and be hailed as a cinema classic by all who have the good fortune to view it.
Oh, you heard it here first. Citizen Kane, Josie and the Pussycats is gunning for you. Mr. Dillon, what did you think of this verdict?
Please, Mr. Dillon's my father. I am shocked. I am wounded today, Ben. Big Ben, my main man. I can't believe that this is what happened. Yes, I can't believe that this court would do that. I know how Ryan Rodriguez feels now every time he thinks about Jason Takes Manhattan. It is a pain that we will be able to share and bond over now. But I still believe in the Reels of Justice and the work we do here, and all I can do is pick myself up and be ready for the next case. Thank you.
And Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within is not a bad movie. Let's kick it back to the studio for a post-trial analysis.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. All right, Tim, this was like the most fun I've had on a case in a long time. It was great. Oh, man. And this is a pretty good movie, too.
I seriously loved your arguments, your opening arguments and closing arguments.
Oh, they were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad you didn't bring up Captain Tennille and the Chief because I would have had to recuse myself. I love that joke.
It's a very good joke. That's Babyface, by the way, making a cameo as the Chief.
No, I know. It's so good. I just I told him to put on the hat. How are they going to know you're a captain without the hat? It's just great.
It's very good. I'm sorry, just to backtrack a second, I feel like I really stepped into some long-held grudge with that Final Fantasy remark.
It's a classic episode. Go check it out.
Everybody doing okay?
No. I think the thing is, Tim, we're all just gonna have like a big loss that we kind of
scar on our chest that we have to bear. You know.
That's fine. No, it was very well argued prosecution. I know we were as a comedy podcast and we're all having a lot of fun, but I was legitimately getting furious at what you were saying.
Oh, fantastic! No, I love it when you called me a big weenie. I was actually going to tell you at the beginning too, before we started recording, like, don't be afraid to be as mean as you want to be because it's hilarious.
Because he's going to make it his ringtone.
That's the one downside of being a judge is you can't actually tell somebody to shut up when they're making a point. But that's what I want.
Oh, you can.
So many
no,
times.
that's the point.
When you're actually, I can tell you to shut up when you're drifting, but not when you're actually making a point.
Was he making a point? I don't know if he was, but no, you can tell him to shut up anyway.
Well, no, I mean, maybe
I don't do that.
I ended up agreeing with all my points, and I agree with you. I think it is good as a cute, fun little movie with some funny things in it. And I mean, if Captain and Elfana are listening, I don't mean all these mean things I was saying about you. You made a very competent movie that's a lot of fun, and you're making a lot of money off it after the fact. I really respect that. So
see, and I think, and I'm not gonna not to get political here, but to look at it on a broader societal spectrum, because we live in a patriarchal society, we are conditioned to view things that are geared towards teens and especially teenage girls as slight and ineffective and less worthwhile. I think this is making as many of the satirical points as something like They Live, but because it's doing it through a female lens, it's not viewed as important.
Thank you for
they totally make
the point that I could not make.
Yeah, they totally make the They Live reference in the movie, right? I mean, when Movie Phone Guy says stuff like "consume," it's
when
clearly
you take
doing
the
They
ears
Live.
off, it's like taking the sunglasses off.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but like I said, they're pointing at it, they're sneering at it. They're not saying anything about it, though.
But
They're just like, this is something that's there.
I'll agree with the jury in saying that an indictment of something is a satirical point. Saying that this system is bad and wrong is saying something just because they're not.
I don't think they really show how it's wrong, though. They're just pointing out that it's there, and you're supposed to. That's bulverism. It's like it's not enough to say your opponent's wrong. You have to show how they're wrong, and it doesn't show you how it's wrong at all. It's just that it's there.
But if you
And
look
maybe
at
we're
it,
supposed to find it a little distasteful.
if you can look at it and say, well, something's wrong here without them actually having to say explicitly that something's wrong, isn't that the point being made?
But who's saying there's something wrong, though? That's the whole point.
So you look
I'd
at
like
all
to
the
hear
points
from
and you think
Ryder.
this is a good point?
No, I'm saying it's a bad point. That's my whole point. That they're not. Wait, that they're making a good point. Now we're
No, you see all the brands and you think, oh, this is a normal situation, or do you think this is a bad situation?
Oh, I'm profoundly indifferent about that kind of thing. That's not something I'm going to lose sleep over, like seeing an airplane with a bunch of targets stuff on it. Seeing the shower with the McDonald's logo. If anything, it's just silly. You're just kind of laughing at it. You're like, look at that. Like the way it's presented in the movie, because they don't make any substantive critique.
Somebody thought about it.
Seeing a whale in a tank full of Evian makes me, at the very least, concerned for the well-being of the whale.
Yes.
That was an advertisement for Evian. It's not necessarily explicitly say that the whale is an Evian. Now, if they said the whale was an Evian, then you're beginning to creep into this commentary point that I'm making on. That would have actually been saying something. That would have been interesting.
I think you as an audience can make a leap and not require this to be forced down your throat in a sharp-handed way. I think this movie uses a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer, and it's better for it.
Agreed.
I respectfully disagree. I think it was set dressing that they thought was going to be funny. But wait, we already did the case, though.
Fair
Let's
enough.
talk about.
I liked this. I like the music,
Jury room, we'll go right back in there.
and I liked the music.
Give me my spear.
It is on my bike playlist, probably from now until eternity.
And even the du jour songs were pretty good.
It's hard to make pop. It's hard to make pop music that is a reliable facsimile of pop music. And making a boy band song that could ostensibly be a #1 boy band song is not easy.
Yeah, it has
I know one member.
It has to be a point so that you understand, well, this is silly, but it also has to be catchy enough that you actually want to hear the song. It has to
one
work
member
kinda
of
like
this
twofold.
court. I know one member of this court listened to all of NSYNC's discography in preparation of this case.
That's true. I did listen to all 3 albums, especially Celebrity, because that was their only #1 album, and it's completely different than some of the other pop stuff. They're moving more into R&B. Justin Timberlake is writing more of it. I didn't know how much we were going to get into pop music history on this stuff. I kind of had a feeling we were going to be looking more on the cultural side of things, which we did. So,
wait, they're only #1. Millennium was the #1
album.
I'm sorry. Is this just is all this just information you have at your fingertips, or is this?
This guy is incredible.
Hey, I went to high school in the 2000s. I remember this stuff.
For sure.
So did I, and I don't.
Yeah, man.
A little bit research. Actually, Tim,
I guess
don't know.
I guess we traveled in different circles, man. But hey, you do you.
So this is actually pretty interesting. One of the things I was looking at, because everyone was talking about, is it ahead of its time? And I was thinking, like, what did it predict anything? So I went ahead for the audience's edification. I didn't present it at court because it would have hurt my case, but it's actually pretty interesting looking at it now. So the movie came out in 2001, right? I looked at the top Billboard Hot 100 singles of the year for the year subsequent after that film, right? So if you start at 2002, it's Nickelback's "How You Remind Me," and then 2003, you got 50 Cent's "In the Club," which has tons of product placement actually in the song. So if anything, Josie and the Pussycats could have gone further because it's not even subliminal in that. And then 2004 is "Yeah" by Usher. Again, product placement in the song. If you skip ahead to 2006, Bad Day by Daniel Powter, if I'm saying that right, that song debuted in a Coca-Cola commercial. So if people do say it's a bit ahead of its time, if anything, it was downplaying how bad it was going to get. If, again, just a very small sample of just going off the Billboard Top 100 song for those songs. I think you have to get all the way to 2012 before you have a song that doesn't have a manufactured or product placement consumerist feel to it. So they were right.
Yeah,
Until
if anything,
Justin
you're
Bieber
right.
goes Like a Good Neighbor, State Farm is There song coming out next year.
Oh, that would be dope. I would
And
listen to that.
And now we have Taylor Swift's face on the side of UPS trucks. It's just all intertwined. And even they were talking about live streaming. They were talking about live streaming a concert in 2001 when most people didn't even have broadband internet. And now all we're doing is live streaming because concerts and live entertainment are dead.
Not of its own volition, but sure.
Yeah.
And I will say Ariana Grande should pay royalties to Josie and the Pussycats every time she puts on a pair of cat ears.
Ooh, I'd be okay with that.
So would I.
Is Aria Grande, she's a pop singer?
Okay, good job.
Well, she didn't come up on the list, okay? I know.
Oh, yeah.
You've been stripped of your title of the guy who knows music.
He never had that title. Let me tell you so. He never had that title.
I know who Beyonce now is because of this case.
Anyway, it was a great case. I'm glad the movie was not guilty. I enjoyed watching the movie. It made me laugh very hard many times. I don't think it made me think that much, but maybe because I already believed a lot of consumer stuff that it was sort of preaching about. But Tim, what has been keeping you busy in these unprecedented times? What have you been up to?
Oh boy, a lot of dog walks, a lot of playing video games, and just trying to stay sane.
What kind of video games?
Oh man, I can't stop playing Apex Legends, which is weird.
Oh, sweet game.
It's weird for me because I typically don't play first-person shooters. I don't play battle royales, and I definitely don't play online competitive. But this game is all three, and I can't stop playing it. It's very enjoyable.
Who do you main?
I main Lifeline typically. I'm always, even in like RPGs, I'm support class. I like healing people because I can't be relied on to kill anyone. I'm not that
You're
good.
a supportive person.
I am a supportive
and I feel
person.
like you heal all of us just by being around.
Oh, you're welcome. And then just working on my own stuff of, writing some pilots and some comedy pieces and just trying to do what I can. And hopefully when things get running again, we'll have some stuff ready to go.
Oh, that's very good. Very thinking ahead, planning ahead. That's always a wise move. Now, Tim, we usually like to ask for suggestions here on the podcast. So do you have a suggestion for a movie you think people should check out?
I do. Palm Springs on Hulu, starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, is a fun, charming new take on the Groundhog Day stuck in a time loop genre. It is particularly of the moment at a time when it feels like every day is the same and we're all stuck in a bit of a time loop to watch this movie of two people who are literally in just that. It was the toast of, Sundance last year, sold for like a record sum, and I think it really earns its money. It's funny. The two leads are super charming, and I think it says, it has some deeper things to say about being stuck in your own life and trying to get better. Can people change? And also stuff blows up from time to time.
Oh, that's my favorite. Is there a robot?
There is not a robot, but there is J.K. Simmons in the most J.K. Simmons of roles.
Oh, awesome.
He
makes up for robot.
Boy, he pops up every now and again just to murder Andy Samberg, and it is great.
That sounds awesome. So Palm Springs. Now, who is our judge today? Oh, Ryan Rodriguez. Riding Ryan. What do you got for a suggestion for us?
I have two. The first one's really brief. First, Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfon's first movie, Can't Hardly Wait. A great little high school movie that's
I was gonna bring that up as well. Also underrated.
Yes, great little movie. Streaming on Fubo, whatever the fuck that is. And my real recommendation for the week is another movie about three young women, a very satirical comedy. It's called Clueless, directed by Amy Heckerling. Just turned 25 this year. And I was surprised when I was rewatching it the other day just how well it's held up. It was remarkably funny and still as incisive as it ever was. And it's streaming for free on Peacock.
She's not a full hecker. She's just a heckerling.
I reference it, sorry, not to interrupt anyone, but I did reference in my opening statement a video essay by a Brooklyn comedian called, I believe, Jake Craig. It's a YouTube video called Josie and the Pussycats is the greatest movie of all time. And John Field, not even close, John Field is his name. And he referenced that time from like the mid 90s to the mid 2000s when there were a lot of movies, there were kind of lower budget comedies directed at like mostly white teenage girls, and there was just a real run of solid movies, Clueless among them, that it was just a really great time for that genre. And he gives a whole list of them, and all of them are worth checking out.
I look forward to reading or listening or watching that.
Especially Bring It On.
Yes.
I was going to say Bring It On is at the top of that list for me.
10 Things I Hate About You.
10 Things I Hate About You. Saved. Mean Girls.
Oh, I love
Saved is so good.
A little known movie about gymnastics starring Missy Peregrine called Stick It.
Actually, I watched that.
That's from the writer of Bring It On, right?
Yep.
All right.
There was a real run in there. So all those are great. I'm done. Sorry.
We mentioned Mean Girls. We were talking about it earlier in conversation, talking about that being another movie with like a dumb blonde, but I think does a little bit more than Tara Reid gets to do in this movie, where like she's oblivious and happy, but she's also like psychic.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I love Mean Girls. Big Ben, what do you got for a suggestion for us?
Going on the theme of movies about musicians, I'm going to recommend Amadeus, which is a masterpiece about mediocrity. It's about the rivalry of Mozart and Salieri, but it's told from Salieri's warped perspective. It's absolutely fantastic. Ryan said this earlier, and I agree that if you've ever had creative ambitions and struggled with them, this is a film that you will very much identify with.
Very cool. And it has that cool song.
Amadeus.
It's from that movie.
Actually, in the soundtrack is conducted by the incomparable Sir Neville Marriner, who has done so much for the understanding of classical music as we listen to it today when it came to pioneering certain recordings, and especially of the Baroque era. So, yeah, just great movie, great conductor.
You're trying to earn that title of guy who knows a lot about music back, aren't you?
No, it just happens to line up with the few things I do know. So.
Well, you know what they say: if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it.
That's infringement, sir. That was from Beauty and the Beast.
No, well, actually, it was, but they got the joke from me. Dylan, what is your recommendation?
Well, I wanted, since it came up, I do want to second Bring It On. That's just a fantastic movie. But since we were talking about the Pussycats, I want to talk about dogs with Plague Dogs. It is the second Martin Rosen adaptation of a work by Richard Adams. You probably are more familiar with Watership Down, but Plague Dogs came out in 1982. It's a completely animated feature. You know, I want to get more cartoons on the podcast, so check out Plague Dogs. It's kind of sad, though, not for kids. Don't watch it with the kids, but it's a good one.
It's on Prime, by the way.
It is on Prime and on Tubi, I believe.
John Hurt is heartbreaking. Oh,
yeah, it's
at all.
So sad.
Yeah, it's the movie's a bit much. It is, but it's worth watching. The book's worth reading as well too.
Books.
Books. Who likes books? So now my recommendation. I'm going to recommend another musical comedy called "This Is Spinal Tap." You know,
nice.
1984. Yeah, it's funny. It's got music in it. It's basically a mockumentary about I guess you'd call them a metal band. I guess they're a rock band, but they may have been proto-metal. And they're not particularly lucky, at least. I guess we'll say that. So this is Spinal Tap, directed by Robb Reiner. Everyone loves Robb Reiner, right?
Absolutely.
Love Robb Reiner's director.
Sure.
The bit of
well,
him
do something. He did that movie with Kevin Costner and Jennifer Aniston, though. That was like a play on The Graduate. And that
Well,
movie
yeah.
sucked.
Well, he took over for a different director. That's not really his
Oh,
fault.
see, Ryan watches movies. See, that's why it's important.
Rumor has it is what this.
Rumor has it. I do not like Rumor has it. That
Yeah.
was a
Tim, what did you
bizarre
like
reference.
in the Spinal Tap?
Just the moment at the beginning with Spinal Tap where Robb Reiner is addressing the camera, goes to fold his arms in front of him, and then immediately drops his arms awkwardly is the best moment of maybe his entire career. And I'll love him forever.
I think they have the best visual gag related to Stonehenge in film that I can think of.
For me, it's all
Oh,
about Billy Crystal saying "Mime is money." I love that so much.
Ben, do you have a favorite Spinal Tap moment?
But it goes to 11.
Yeah, very good.
The classic for a reason.
It's classic. It was easy. Tim, thank you so much for coming on to the show with us. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you for having me. It was a delight, gentlemen. Thank you.
You were great.
I'm glad that you were able to win.
Me too. I would have left immediately if I hadn't.
Good. I'm glad that we voted for you then. Now, before we go though, you were Tom Servo, right, on the live tour?
On two of the live tours, the first two national tours, I voiced and puppeteered Tom Servo in the Mystery Science Theater live tours, the Watch Out for Snakes tour, and then the 30th anniversary tour.
And you were great too.
Yes.
Hey, thanks.
I saw you on the second one, and you were
Sorry, you
fantastic.
can't take your own Kevin.
Oh, thanks very much, guys. I was just, some of those memories just popped up because in my time hop or whatever, I get the indications that I was at this particular city 2 or 3 years ago, and those were some amazing times. Sleeping on a bus is difficult, but the shows themselves were incredible.
There was
hopefully. Go on.
Sorry. During the second tour, the 20th anniversary one, when you came to San Jose, there was a little girl that asked during the question and answer session about, I forget exactly what the question was, but how much is a room or something like that? And both you and Grant, holding the puppets, backed up very slowly with your mouths agape as if your minds had been blown. And it was the most adorable thing I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
Thank you.
Oh,
I
loved it
remember
so
that. I remember that bit especially because Grant's such a skilled, trained puppeteer that anytime I could do something with him silently puppeteering and like be on his level, I remembered it.
I can open my mouth too.
I can open my mouth and awkwardly back away. Look at us.
Do love Tim. We love Grant and we love Tim as Tom. I like to call him Tim Servo.
Thank you. That is the appropriate title.
Yes, and hopefully I would love to see, obviously we want more MST3K. I'd love to see if we get Tim Servo on something again in the future. That would be great.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
And with all that, we are all out of show this week, but we hope you'll join us next time as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.